Good morning. Welcome to our first in-person meeting of Joint Assembly Ways and Means and Senate Finance General Government Subcommittee. I will call this meeting to order and ask the Secretary to please take the roll.
Senator Brooks. Here. Senator Dennis.
Here.
Senator Goycochea.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gorlow. Here. Assemblyman Haven.
Here.
Assemblywoman Howdigi. Assemblywoman Howdigi. Here. Assemblyman Levitt. Here. Assemblywoman Miller. Here. Chair Peters.
And I am here. Thank you. It looks like we have everybody in the room today, all committee members in the room today, which is great. Today is our first day in person, which is exciting, but also I'm sure we will come across some new territory, so please bear with us while we work through any glitches this morning. Although the building is officially open to the public, there continue to be limits on the building capacity, so in addition to attending meetings in person, the public and other presenters are welcome to continue to participate using the online sign-up for each meeting, which can be found on the Nellis link to this meeting. Additionally, the public can continue to follow these meetings on the legislator's YouTube channel. Links to that can also be found on Nellis. Today, staff will be presenting us with 10 budget closing recommendations. These are available in the committee room in hard copies, and each member of the committee should now have a copy. Those participating online can find the closing documents on Nellis on today's meeting link under exhibits. And with that, I believe we have staff, Mr. Maloney. You go ahead and please proceed with our first closing for Department of Business and Industry, Employee Management Relation Board Budget 101-1374.
Hey, good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, James Malone, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. This morning, I will be covering one budget from the Department of Business and Industry and 4 Division of Human Resource Management budgets within the Department of Administration. The first budget on the agenda is 101-1374, the Employee Management Relations Board, and begins on page 3. Fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for this budget. The subcommittee has not previously reviewed this budget. There are no major issues. There are other closing items 1 and 2 detailed in the table on page 4. There is a technical adjustment identified in other items 3. The executive budget reflects an increase to the local government employer fee from $3 to $5 in fiscal year 2023. However, the agency indicated this was included in the budget in error and should remain at the $3 level. The adjustment would result in a reduction of local government fee revenue of $175,700 in fiscal year 2023. In addition, the agency indicates the reserve levels for the local government and state government operating splits in the executive budget do not reflect actual reserve levels for those reserve categories, and fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to adjust the reserve balance, resulting in a shift of $3,489 from the state reserve category to the local government reserve category. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 and 2 be closed as recommended by the governor, and other closing items 3 be closed with the noted technical adjustments, and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee on the budget? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close items 1 and 2 as recommended by the governor, and item 3 be closed with a noted technical adjustment with authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
I second, Madam Chair.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdigi. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, because we are all in the room and to save time, we are going to do a voice vote of aye and nay. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Please move on to the next budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Malone, LCB Fiscal. The next budget on the agenda is 717-1363, Department of Administration, Human Resource Management, and begins on page 5 of your packet. There are two major closing issues. The first major closing issue is the establishment of a new collective bargaining assessment. The governor recommends establishing a new collective bargaining assessment with an annual rate of $48.77 per FTE in fiscal year 2022 and $42.68 per FTE in fiscal year 2023 in lieu of the personnel assessment to cover costs associated with the labor relations unit and to establish an initial 60-day operating reserve. This recommendation is projected to generate $2 million over the 21-23 biennium. Currently, the Division of Human Resource Management utilizes the personnel assessment to fund the labor relations unit. However, the personnel assessment is based on an FTE count of all employees each year, including employees that are not classified into a bargaining unit. By establishing a new collective bargaining assessment, funding the labor relations unit would be assessed to agencies based on FTE counts of employees who are classified into a bargaining unit. As background, the Labor Relations Unit was established during the interim at the February 2020 IHC meeting to provide services to agencies and employees throughout the state regarding labor relations and collective bargaining. The table on page 6 provides a breakdown of the operating costs for the Labor Relations Unit over the 21-23 biennium. The agency reports 19,010 authorized state positions fall into a bargaining unit, of which 7 of the 11 bargaining units have exclusive representation, and 3,994 authorized state positions do not meet the classification requirements for a bargaining unit as detailed in the table on the top of page 7. Currently, the Division of Human Resource Management operates on 2 revenue sources: the personnel assessment, which is collected on a per FTE basis for all state employees and provides state agencies mediation, recruitment, compensation, classification, training, and employee management services. And the payroll assessment is collected on a per FTE basis and provides state agencies with central payroll services. The table on the bottom of page 7 details the current structure prior to the new assessments, where you will see this budget would be funded with personnel and payroll assessments if not approved, and the impacts to the rates in the 4 right columns of the table if the new collective bargaining assessment is approved. Fiscal staff would note, if the collective bargaining assessment is not approved, funding for the labor relations unit will continue to be provided through the personnel assessment. During the February 26, 2021 budget hearing, the subcommittee questioned the benefits of moving the funding for the labor relations unit from the personnel assessment to the collective bargaining assessment. In response, the agency indicated the decision unit is revenue neutral, or there is an equivalent decrease in the personnel assessment to the amounts anticipated to be received through the collective bargaining assessment. In addition, the agency indicated the Department of Administration felt it was appropriate to submit an assessment that charged per employee who would benefit from the labor relations unit. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approving the establishment of a new collective bargaining assessment to fund the labor relations unit?
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Sorry? Oh, thank you. Are there any questions on the closing document, Assemblyman Levitt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this may have been answered before, and it's just for my clarification. So under this new assessment process, are the exempt or are we taking out the exempt employees, directors, managers, exempt employees? Are they out of the counts now? Is that kind of the purpose of this?
Yes, that would be correct. So the personnel assessment is a per FTE and would include those positions charge. What this would do is only assess the charge for the labor relations unit for positions that qualify for a collective bargaining unit.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we approve the establishment of a new collective bargaining assessment to fund the labor relations unit.
I I second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdige. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I would take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, nay. No opposition. That motion passes unanimously. Please continue with the next decision unit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Malone, LCB Fiscal for the record. The second major issue, which begins in the middle of page 8, the governor recommends the elimination of a vacant administrative assistant 1 position in Las Vegas, resulting in an increase of $113,575 in reserves over the 2021-23 biennium. According to the agency, the elimination of a vacant administrative assistant position is recommended for efficiency efforts. In addition, the agency reports the position has been vacant longer than 12 months and the respective duties have been absorbed by other administrative assistant positions. Fiscal staff would note, per the Human Resource Data Warehouse, the recommended position for elimination has been vacant for over 3 years. In addition, fiscal staff would note the administrative assistant position was included in the motion to preliminarily restore positions recommended for elimination or held vacant utilizing American Rescue Plan Act funds during the April 1st, 2021 joint meeting of the Senate Committee on Finance and the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means. However, it was determined this position was recommended for elimination for reasons other than budget reductions. And as such, the subcommittee may wish to recommend to the joint full committee that it reconsider its original motion to restore the position. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend approving the elimination of a vacant administrative assistant position in Las Vegas and therefore recommend to the joint full committee that it reconsider its original motion to restore this position using American Rescue Plan Act funds, which was preliminarily approved during the April 1st, 2021 joint meeting of the Senate Committee on Finance and the Assembly Committee on Ways and Means?
Thank you. Are there any questions on this decision unit? Seeing none, I would go ahead and entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve the elimination of a vacant administrative assistant position in Las Vegas. And I move that we recommend to the joint full committee that it reconsider its original motion to restore this position using American Rescue Plan Act funds, which was preliminarily approved during the April 1st, 2021 joint meeting of the Senate Committee on Finance and Assembly Committee on Ways and Means.
Second the motion.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdige. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I would take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. And I just want to thank staff that worked out really well, just as was explained to us in the April 1st meeting. So thank you so much for walking us through that. We can move on to the next decision unit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. James Malone, LCB Fiscal for the record. There are 3 other closing items detailed in the table on page 9. Fiscal staff recommends all other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Are there any questions on these other closing items? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we close all other closing items as recommended by the governor and give staff authority to make technical adjustments as necessary.
I second.
I have a first from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdige. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. We may move on to the next budget, please.
Madam Chair, I will now begin presenting the budgets which the subcommittee has not previously reviewed for the Department of Administration, Division of Human Resource Management, and for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. I will pause following my presentation of each budget to allow for questions. When I have presented the last budget in this group and questions have been addressed, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration on all of the budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations. The first budget is 717-1360 Human Resource Management, Agency HR Services, and begins on page 11. This budget provides the full range of HR services to certain state agencies, including recruitment and hiring, leave issues, personnel issues, answering questions, and giving guidance when needed. There are no major closing issues and 4 other closing items as detailed in the table on page 12. I am happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions on this budget? Seeing none, go ahead on to the next one.
The next budget is 101-1339, Human Resource Management, Unemployment and Compensation, and begins on page 13 of your packet. This budget receives a uniform assessment on the gross salaries of all participating agencies that support reimbursements paid to the Employment Security Division of the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation for unemployment benefits provided to former state employees of participating agencies. There are no major closing issues or other closing items. I am happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, go ahead and move to the next one.
Budget account 101-1345 begins on page 15. This is the Department of Administration Merit Award Board. The Merit Award Program provides cash awards to employees for employee suggestions that have realized a reduction, elimination, or avoidance of state expenditures or improvements in the operation of state government. There are no major closing issues or other closing items. I am happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions on this budget? Seeing none, would staff please go over the summary closing?
Okay. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for the following budgets. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budgets that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. 717-1360, Human Resource Management, Agency HR Services. 101-1339, Human Resource Management, Unemployment Compensation, and 101-1345, Merit Award Board.
Are there any questions on the summary document? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor and authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. 717-1360, 101-1339, and 101-1345.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdege. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. We can move on to the next budget, which I believe is presented by, well, I had the list in front of me and now it's not there, so I'm just going to ask staff to go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The next budget in your packet is the Department of Administration Director's Office. That begins on page 19 of your packet. It was heard by the subcommittee on February 26th. There is one major closing issue in this budget. It is the Nevada Commission for Women position. It's decision units E225 and E805. The governor recommends the reclassification of a management analyst 2 position that is mostly dedicated to support the Nevada Commission for Women to an administrative assistant 3 with a corresponding change in duties to split the position's duties 50% between support for the commission and to provide administrative support to the Department of Administration Director's Office with a corresponding change to the position's funding source. During the hearing on February 26th, the director indicated that the management analyst position was added during the 79th session to assist the Secretary of State in conducting an annual survey of businesses with 100 or more employees regarding gender equality in the workplace pursuant to NRS 223I.060, which expires by limitation on December 31st, 2022. The members of the Nevada Commission for Women support the reclassification of the position since they feel the necessary duties can be performed on a part-time basis, given that they can do their own policy analysis and the survey requirement is ending. The department also stated that the director's office needs additional administrative support since it only has an executive assistant to support the director and the deputy, and the reclassification of the position would provide the additional assistance needed. The department approached the Interim Finance Committee on April 1st to request that the position reclassification occur in fiscal year 2021, since the ongoing statutory need to perform the administrative duties was creating a hardship and inefficiencies that could not wait the additional time required for approval through the legislative session. This position has been vacant since November 2020. The reclassification for the position was approved by the Interim Finance Committee for the current fiscal year at its April 1st, 2020 meeting. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend the reclassification of a Nevada Commission for Women position commensurate with the changes in duties and consistent with the actions of the Interim Finance Committee on April 1st, 2021, with a corresponding change in the funding source for 50% of the position's costs to director's cost allocation? And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Day. I think because we only have a couple of other closing items, I would ask that you go over those and we can take one motion on all of these, barring any objection. Please go ahead with other closing items as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. There are two other closing items in this budget that appear reasonable to staff. Fiscal staff recommends the other closing items be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Do we have any questions on this budget? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for both of the decision items and other closing items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recommend the reclassification of a Nevada Commission for Women position commensurate with the changes in duties and consistent with the actions of the Interim Finance Committee on April 1st, 2021, with a corresponding change in the funding source for 50% of the position's cost to the Director's Office to cost allocation. I also move that other closing items be closed as recommended by the Governor and grant authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdegi. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And the motion passes unanimously. We can move on to the next budget, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. Madam Chair, I will now begin presenting the budgets which the subcommittees have not previously reviewed for the Department of Administration and for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing closing recommendations. I will pause following my presentation for each budget to allow for questions. When I have presented the last budget in this group and questions have been addressed, the chair may wish to ask for a single motion for closing consideration on all of the budgets for which fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations. There are two budgets that will be in this group. The first is the Department of Administration, Administrative Services Division, which begins on page 23 of your closing packet. The Administrative Services Division provides fiscal and administrative support to the divisions of the Department of Administration, as well as fiscal services to other entities such as the Board of Examiners, Office of the Governor, Governor's Mansion, Lieutenant Governor, Agency for Nuclear Projects, Office of Energy, Civil Air Patrol, Commission on Ethics, and the Commission on Judicial Discipline. There are no major closing issues in this budget. There are 4 other closing items that appear reasonable to staff, and which the closing recommendations for this budget are included on the summary page in the closing packet, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions on this item? There are none. Please proceed, Ms. Day.
Great, thank you. For the record, Stephanie Day, Fiscal Analysis Division. The other Department of Administration budget that is in this packet is for the Office of Grant Procurement Coordination, which begins on page 25 of your closing packet. The Office of Grant Procurement Coordination and Management provides a range of grant-related support for state agencies, including identifying funding opportunities and providing grant-related resources, advocacy, and coordination. The Nevada Grants Office also develops, provides, and coordinates grant-related training workshops and resources for state agencies, ensures the state has submitted mandated and accurate state and federal grant information, serves as the single point of contact for state grant applications, and works with agencies and subgrantees to ensure compliance with federally mandated activities. There are no major closing issues in this budget. There are 3 other closing items that appear reasonable to staff, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions on this budget? Seeing none, please proceed, Ms. Day.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 27 of your closing packet is the summary for the Department of Administration. As previously noted, fiscal staff is responsible for developing recommendations for the following budgets. To assist with the closing, fiscal staff has identified the budgets that are recommended to be closed as recommended by the governor, along with identified technical adjustments that are recommended below. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budget be closed as recommended by the governor and consistent with the full Joint Committee's closing actions on the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, which is budget account 2995, Office of Workforce Innovation, budget account 1004, Nevada and Nevada P20 Workforce Reporting, budget account 3270 budgets, and request authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. That is budget account 716, 1371, Administration, Administrative Services Division. Fiscal staff recommends that the following budget be closed as recommended by the governor and requests authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. Budget account 101, 1341, Administration, Office of Grant Procurement Coordination.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Are there any questions on the summary document? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor and consistent with the Joint Full Committee's closing actions of the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education, budget account 2995, and the Office of Workforce Innovation, budget account 1004, and Nevada P20 Workforce Reporting, budget account 3270, budgets, and request authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary to budget account 7161371, and I recommend that the following budgets be closed as recommended by the governor and request authority for staff to make technical adjustments as necessary. 1011341.
Thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion from Senator Brooks and second from Vice Chair Howdigi. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. On those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Day. I believe we have Mr. Speed up next for the next set of budgets.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Dustin Speed, LCB Fiscal Division for the record. This morning I'll be discussing the Department of Administration Fleet Services Capital Purchase Budget, 711-1356, found on the top of page 29 of your packet. This budget has one major issue, which is the purchase of new vehicles, which would be under Decision Unit E720. As submitted, the governor recommends transfers of reserve funds from the Fleet Services Administration budget of $836,791 in FY 2022 and $504,227 in FY 2023 for the purchase of new vehicles to be leased to the agencies on a monthly basis. The purchase includes 22 vehicles in FY 22 and 11 vehicles in FY 23 to increase the number of vehicles leased to the agencies on a monthly basis. Fiscal staff would note the executive budget includes a new monthly vehicle leases in the agency budgets of 24 in FY 22 and 9 in FY 23. While the Fleet Services Division budget includes 22 vehicles recommended for purchase in FY 22 and 11 in FY 23. During the February 26, 2021 budget hearing, in response to questions from the subcommittee, the agency testified that Fleet Services was actively looking to add electric vehicles where possible, and charging stations are a component of the recommended capital improvement program project for the new Southern Nevada Fleet Services Maintenance Building at the Grant Sawyer building site. The agency stated that there are not many manufacturers currently producing electric vehicles that fit agency requests, such as pickups and other specialty vehicles. We have a technical adjustment to E720 is necessary to increase transfers of reserve funds from Fleet Services Administration budget by $644 in FY22 and $322 in FY2023 to allow the Department of Motor Vehicles title fee of $29.25 per vehicle. A corresponding decision unit is included in the Fleet Services Administration budget to fund the purchase of vehicles and the associated DMV title fees and vehicle insurance. We have a budget amendment, E721, which was not included in the executive budget. The Governor's Finance Office submitted budget amendment A2156611356 that recommends a transfer of reserve funds from the Fleet Services Administration budget of $298,502 in FY 2022 to fund the purchase of 8 additional vehicles to be leased to state agencies on a monthly basis. 3 vehicles were for the Department of Agriculture and 5 of the vehicles were for the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy, which are detailed on the following table. A technical adjustment is necessary to increase the transfer of reserve funds from the Fleet Services Administration budget by $234 in FY22 to fund DMV title fees of $29.25 per vehicle. A corresponding decision unit is included in the Fleet Services Administration budget to fund the purchase of the vehicles and the associated DMV title fees and vehicle insurance. Finally, we have a technical adjustment decision unit E722, which was not included in the executive budget. The governor recommends a new fleet service vehicle for the Department of Corrections Director's Office for a new assistant to the director position in decision unit E228, which is located in the corrections budget. Although the vehicle was included in the Department of Corrections budget, the executive budget, the corresponding requests for the new vehicle and associated DMV and title fee and vehicle insurance were not reflected in the budgets for the Fleet Services Division. A technical adjustment is necessary to increase transfer and reserve funds from the Fleet Services Administration budget of $22,569 at FY22 to allow for the purchase of the vehicle and associated DMV title fee. A corresponding decision unit is included in the Fleet Services Administration budget to fund the purchase of the vehicle and the associated DMV title fee and vehicle insurance. As displayed in the following tables, the budget amendment and technical adjustments result in the additional transfer of reserve funds from the Fleet Services Administration budget of $321,949 in FY 2022 and $322 in FY 2023 over what was recommended in the executive budget to fund a total of 42 new vehicles over the 2021-2023 biennium to be leased by state agencies, which can be seen below in tables on page 31 and 32. Fiscal staff would note that the budget for Fleet Services Division will be updated to reflect actual number and type of vehicle approved for each fiscal year, consistent with the full committee's actions on the corresponding agency budgets. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend funding for the purchase of 42 vehicles to be leased to state agencies on a monthly basis, including 33 vehicles as recommended in the executive budget, 8 vehicles included in the budget amendment A2156611356, and 1 vehicle for the Department of Corrections and the noted technical adjustments contingent upon the joint full committee's actions on the corresponding decision units in the agency budgets, and with the authority for fiscal staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Speed. Are there any questions on this budget? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recommend funding for the purchase of 42 new vehicles to be leased to the state agencies on a monthly basis, including 33 vehicles as recommended in the executive budget, 8 vehicles included in budget amendment A2156611356, and 1 vehicle for the Department of Corrections and the noted technical adjustments, contingent upon the joint full committee's actions on the corresponding decision units in agency budgets, and with authority for fiscal staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Second, Madam Chair.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdigy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Senator Gokcia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just kind of, again, we're going to buy the vehicles, but what happens if in the budget process, the lease agreement, say, let's say the Department of Ag then isn't, can you hear me now? Is it better? Okay. What happens in the case, say, the Ag budget wasn't approved for those vehicles, and yet we've already purchased them through this one?
Mr. Speed, do you have could you hear Senator Gokcia?
Yes, we will be updating contingent upon the individual agency budgets as they're passed. The fleet services schedule will be adjusted as necessary to reflect what is approved by the legislature. If that makes sense.
If I may, Madam Chair, just a quick follow-up. So then we would come back and adjust this ultimately if that particular budget didn't pass, or that item in a particular budget.
Dustin Speed for the record. Senator Gokcia, staff would be responsible for making a technical adjustment in this case
All right, thank you.
to add or remove vehicles as approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll get used to being in the committee again.
We're moving more quickly through these budgets as we're in the committee room together. So, okay, so we have a motion and we had some discussion. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We can move on to the next budget item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dustin Speed, LCB Fiscal Analysis Division for the record. The next budget we'll be going through is the Department of Administration Fleet Services budget. Budget 711-1354, which can be found on the top of page 33. This budget has no major issue. It has 3 closing items consistent with the major closing issues presented in budget account 1354 Fleet Services, with the exception of a technical adjustment to base to increase reserves by $38,960 in FY22 and $36,904 in FY2023 to align expenses for DMV title fees and vehicle insurance. Fiscal staff would note that the budgets for Fleet Services Division will be updated to reflect the actual number of and type of vehicle approved for each fiscal year, consistent with the full committee's actions on the corresponding agency budgets. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 3 to be closed as recommended by the governor, including the budget amendment A2156713554, and consistent with the subcommittee's actions on the fleet services capital purchase budget with the noted technical adjustments and request authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Sorry, I kind of lost track of where we were at. Are there any questions on this decision unit? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we recommend other closing items 1 through 3 be closed as recommended by the governor, including budget amendment A2156711354, and consistent with the subcommittee's actions on the fleet services capital purchase budget with the noted technical adjustments and request authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdigy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? The motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. There is some additional information which requires no additional action, but are there any questions from the committee on these additional items? Seeing none, we can move on. And Ms. Mangoba, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. For the record, Marie Mangoba from the Fiscal Analysis Division, and I'm here to present the budget closing recommendation for the Department of Taxation, starting on page 37 of your packet. This budget was heard by the subcommittee on February 26, 2021. There's only one major closing issue, and that's some measures to generate general fund savings which include 3 recommendations to increase fees, 2 of which requires legislation to effectuate the recommendations. The first recommendation, the executive budget recommends an increase in license fees for cigarette and other tobacco products, wholesale and retail dealers of $514,894 over the 2021-23 biennium, with a corresponding decrease in general fund appropriations. Budget Amendment A214452361 has been submitted by the Governor's Finance Office to correct this technical error in the executive budget to clarify that the recommended revenue increase is from cigarette tax administrative fees and not licensing fees. The budget amendment also reduces the recommended increase in revenue to $268,224 over the 2021-23 biennium. Pursuant to NRS 370.260, the department shall be compensated for the cost of collecting cigarette taxes. Accordingly, the department calculates the cigarette tax administrative fee based on the percentage of time each staff spends on collecting cigarette taxes, their associated operating expenditures, and the cost to issue Nevada cigarette revenue stamps as required by NRS 370.170. The department indicates the administrative cost to collect cigarette tax has not been reviewed for over 5 years. The agency conducted an internal desk audit to determine the true cost to administer the cigarette tax, which is reflected in the budget amendment. If the governor's recommendation is as amended is approved, cigarette tax administrative fees would total $596,502 in fiscal year 22 and $609,910 in fiscal year 23. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend increasing the administrative fee currently assessed on cigarette taxes by $268,224 over the 2021-23 biennium, as amended in Budget Amendment A214452361, with an equal reduction in general fund appropriation?
Thank you, Ms. Mangoba. Are there any questions on this item, Assemblyman Levitt?
So when we're increasing a fee on certain taxes, is that required through legislation, or can we just do it right here? Is that how it works? Maybe I'm not keen on all that. To increase a fee of that nature, does it require legislation? Is this attached to a bill?
Thank you for the question. Ms. Mangoba, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Jeremy Mangoba. Typically, if it's increasing a fee, it would require legislation. However, for this particular administrative fee being recommended by the governor, this does not require legislation to be changed, as it is already specified in NRS that they could collect this administrative fee.
So it's already in, sorry, follow up. So it's already in legislation that you can increase it to a certain amount? Is that how it works, or is it just open-ended?
That is correct. According to NRS that provides for this administrative fee, they could increase based on what the legislature approved for a certain amount.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Senator Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So does the actual tax itself increase, or is it just a portion of it that's collected go to the fees for the collection of that tax?
For the record, Jamie Mangoba, this recommendation does not increase the tax. What it does is it just increases the administrative fee portion, which is carved out on the top prior to the distribution of the tax to the local agency in the general fund.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Madam Chair, could I have Brody just kind of clarify that, please?
Please go ahead.
For the record, Brody Leiser and Ms. Mangoba will correct me if I'm wrong, but as she just indicated, this is not an increase on the fee that's being charged. This is a change in the distribution of the fee that's already being collected. And this is just to increase the portion, I believe, that goes to the Department of Taxation to ensure that they're covered for their administrative costs, as I understand the recommendation. And Ms. Mangova, if you could confirm if that's correct.
That is correct.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That clarifies a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblyman, and thank you, Mr. Leiser. Are there any other questions? None. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we recommend increasing the administrative fee currently assessed on cigarette taxes by $268,224 over the 2021-23 biennium, as amended in the budget amendment A2144523, A214452361, with an equal reduction in general fund appropriations.
Second.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdigy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes unanimously. We can move on to the next unit.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 39, the second recommendation is a justice court fee increase. For background purposes, pursuant to NRS 4.065, a fee of $1 is collected from a party commencing, answering, or appearing in the action or proceeding in justice court. Additionally, pursuant to NRS, revenues collected from justice court fees must be used to fund the department demographer's positions cost that determines and estimates the annual population of various political subdivisions in the state, issues an annual report, and cooperates with the federal government in conducting each decennial census in the state. The executive budget recommends increasing the justice court fee from $1 to $2, resulting in additional fee revenue for the department of $163,837 over the 2021-23 biennium, with a corresponding decrease in general fund appropriation. The department submitted Bill Draft Request 1-1079 to effectuate the recommended fee increase. Additionally, the Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A214452361 to increase the revenue projections from the Justice Court fee to show $171,636 over the 2021-23 biennium, with a corresponding decrease in general fund appropriation. Justice Subcommittee wished to recommend increasing justice court fees by $171,636 over the 2021-23 biennium, as amended in Budget Amendment A214452361, with a corresponding reduction in general fund appropriations, contingent upon the passage of enabling legislation that would effectuate an increase in the justice court fee from $1 to $2.
Thank you, Ms. Mangova. Are there questions? Assemblyman Levitt.
So just to clarify for the public, this is what I thought was happening in the last one, correct? Okay, thank you.
Senator Gocochea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what is the status of the legislation at this point? Do we know?
It is staff's understanding that the legislation has not been introduced at this time.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So this action would be contingent on the passage. Thank you.
Correct.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recommend increasing justice court fees by $171,636 over the 2021-23 biennium, as amended in Budget Amendment A214452361, with a corresponding reduction in general fund appropriations, contingent upon the passage of enabling legislation that would effectuate an increase in the justice court fee from $1 to $2.
Second that motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdigy. Are there any discussion on the motion, Senator Gocochea?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And then in case, if the enabling legislation did not pass, then we would just backfill this with general fund, I assume, augment from general fund.
I saw.
For the record, Jamie Mangova, you are correct, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. With that, motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Mangoba. Please move on to the next item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last recommendation to generate general fund savings is a recommendation for a new centrally assessed commission on unsecured roll for personal property. The Governor's Finance Office submitted Budget Amendment A214452361 on February 23rd, 2021, which establishes commission revenues of $273,920 over the 2021-23 biennium to cover the department's cost to value, collect, and disperse centrally assessed personal property taxes on the unsecured roll, which has a corresponding decrease in general fund appropriations. The department submitted Bill Draft Request 32-1078 to allow it to begin collecting the commission. The department indicates it currently values, collects, and disperses personal property tax at no cost relating to operating property of an interstate or inter-county nature, such as those owned by airlines, railroads, telecommunications, electric power, and gas companies to local governments. This recommendation is an additional commission from the 8% commission the local government currently receives, which is based on the cost of administering the centrally assessed property tax program. This includes a portion of the personal costs of 7 existing staff administering this program. Does the subcommittee wish to recommend adding revenue of $273,920 over the 2021-23 biennium from a new centrally assessed commission on the unsecured roll for personal property with a corresponding reduction in general fund appropriations contingent upon passage of enabling legislation that would effectuate the recommendation?
Thank you, Ms. Mangoba. Are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, Senator Gochia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a clarification, again, this is contingent on enabling legislation. We assume the counties probably will push back on some of this. I just want to make sure it was on the record. It does take legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we know the status of that legislation?
For the record, Jamie Mangoba, Madam Chair, at this time, I believe the legislation has not been introduced.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Did I take a motion yet? No. I would. Okay, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to recommend adding revenue of $273,920 over the 2021-23 biennium from a new centrally assessed commission on the unsecured roll for personal property, with a corresponding reduction in general fund appropriations contingent upon the passage of enabling legislation that would effectuate that recommendation.
Second, Madam Chair.
I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdege. Is there any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Haven.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just would like to get on the record that I have some concerns with the county issue that the Senator mentioned. I will vote this for recommendation today, but I'd like to see the language that will be introduced, and I just wanted to get that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. And with that, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Please go ahead, Ms. Mangoba, with the other closing items.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Jamie Mangoba. On page 40 are 7 other closing items, 5 of which appears reasonable to staff. For other closing item number 6, that's decision unit E232, fiscal staff would note that the recommended increase in out-of-state travel expenditures was based on an incorrect amount in the base budget, causing the out-of-state travel expenditures to be overstated in this decision unit. Fiscal staff recommends a technical adjustment to reduce out-of-state travel expenditures by $1,251 over the 2021-23 biennium to correct this error. with an equal reduction in general fund appropriations. For other closing item number 7, the agency indicated the recommendation to increase operating expenditures is no longer needed since they determined an error in their calculation. Accordingly, fiscal staff recommends decision unit E235 not be approved. Fiscal staff recommends other closing items 1 through 5 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 6 be closed with a noted technical adjustment. Other closing item 7 not be approved, and request authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Thank you. Are there any questions on these other closing items? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that other closing items 1 through 5 be closed as recommended by the governor. Other closing item 6 be closed with a noted technical adjustment. Other closing item 7 not be approved, and request authority for staff to make other technical adjustments as necessary.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I have a motion from Senator Brooks and a second from Vice Chair Howdige. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Mangoba. Well, looks like we have some additional information that requires no action. Are there any questions on that piece? Seeing none, my packet is done. And I think leads us to our last item on the agenda, which is public comment. Now, this is going to function, I think, very similar to how it normally did while we were online, in part because there's not anybody in the audience here, I believe, who would be wanting to present public comment. So if I can ask Broadcast to open up the line and see if there's anybody on the line for public comment. Senator Gokachia, I'm sorry.
Yes, Madam Chair, before we get into public comment, I'd just like to make one comment on the taxation budget. Now, we've put about a $450,000 hole in here. If those two pieces of legislation don't pass, it will require $450,000 of additional general fund, I believe, to fill that. So thank you.
Thank you for the comment. I'm going to go ahead and go back to public comment. Broadcast, is there anyone on the line?
Chair, this is Michael from Broadcast. The public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
I believe there's still probably a delay in the broadcast, so I would give us a minute to just check in and make sure that we haven't missed anybody. Broadcast, does it appear that we have anybody calling in?
Chair, the public comment line is open and working. However, we have no callers at this time.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And with that, I would ask the committee, are there any other comments or questions before we adjourn the meeting? Seeing none, I will adjourn this first in-person meeting of the committee. Thank you so much.